Thank you so much, Wendy, and everyone for the great introductions to this project. It's so great to see everyone here today. So as Martin said, what we're hoping to gain from your participation here is a better understanding of your priorities, concerns, and needs for water monitoring to help us select those monitoring sites. So we've developed a couple of different tools that we're going to use to share and gather information with you across our local reference groups and our Indigenous knowledge holders. So I'm going to share a link here in the chat now that contains 3 of those tools. So we've got an online survey and we've got 2 interactive maps as well. And I will share my screen here so you can just follow along on my screen if you'd prefer for now, and then you can access this later, or you can follow along on your own computer as we go here. So if you do follow that link, you'll see we are on the community engagement website for the Columbia Kootenay Headwaters local reference group. So we'll walk through the site step by step here over the next half hour or so, and then you're welcome to revisit it in the future. Over the next few weeks, we'll leave this open so you can continue to give feedback and think about what we're proposing here. So starting at the top of the page here, we do have just a general map of the area of interest, which you can click on to enlarge. And we're looking at kind of the Columbia Valley here, including Canal Flats, Invermere, Radium Hot Springs, and then up north towards Golden. And then if we continue to scroll down the page here, under the What Matters to You heading, you'll see a written survey. So the intention of this survey is to capture the group's broader general values and priorities. And after that survey, we will look at how you can share your location-specific knowledge or recommendations with us. So let's just have a quick look over the survey together right now and make sure that everyone understands these questions and how they're formatted. And again, the survey will be open to you for the next 2 weeks here. If you'd like to revisit it in the future, we'd really like to hear your feedback. So the first page of the survey here is just some general consent and confirmation that you have some interest in the area. So you don't necessarily need to live in the area of interest to participate here, but if you work in this region or you have a cultural connection to the area, you're certainly welcome to participate. And then we are asking people to provide their email. We'll keep your responses anonymous in our reporting and things like that, but we'd love to know who's making these comments so we can follow up with you if we do have any questions about your recommendations or your concerns. And then the next page of the survey here is 3 questions where we're aiming to identify your broad concerns and values in relation to water monitoring in this region. So what are your primary concerns? And then just indicating if you do have any particular water bodies or watersheds that you're really wanting to see some more monitoring or action on. And then finally here, what outcomes or benefits do you anticipate from an expanded water monitoring network in this region? So I think that's a really important question to ask the group here is, why are we doing this and what questions would you like us to answer through the monitoring? Moving on to the next page of the survey here, we have a set of 4 questions where we're asking you to rank your priorities for monitoring. So in this question, we're asking about hydrometric monitoring, so either stream flow or in the case of lakes and wetlands, water level. We've just got a number of attributes here, and we're wondering which of these are highest priority for you or which might be of lesser concern. And I can understand that it would be really tempting to just say that all of these are high priority, but we do need to make some tough decisions here and decide which water bodies we're going to monitor and which we're not able to. So if there are items here that are of less concern to you, if you could indicate those, it would be really helpful for us as we build this priority monitoring matrix to guide our decision making. And below each of these ranking questions, there is a comment box where you can indicate if there are any additional priorities or attributes that we've missed here that you'd like to be considered for site selection and prioritization. So again, a couple more of these questions. One looking at site selection for monitoring of water quality, whether that's continuous, looking at temperature, or if it's discrete sampling for nutrients, contaminants, metals, turbidity, or anything like that. Again, here, so looking at things like sources of drinking water, fish habitat, any other priorities that you might have with regard to water quality. Sorry, my cat. So then again, here we've got an open comment box here. If we've missed any priorities with regard to lake water quality, you can add those here and we'll certainly take them into consideration. Finally, we've got climate stations here. So as Susan said, we are looking to install some climate stations in addition to the hydrometric and water quality sites here. And again, an open comment box there. And then again, we've got groundwater as well. So we do really want to consider the whole hydrologic system here, from climate to precipitation to stream flow and then down to groundwater. And then the final page of the survey here, we are looking as well at if you have any cultural considerations that we should take into account for our site selection, but also, as Emily said, while we're conducting the monitoring, we want to be respectful of any sensitive sites or protocols that we should be undertaking. So there's a question about this here, but if you do have concerns or thoughts that you'd like to discuss privately, you're welcome to contact Emily or Wendy here. And then we've got the last question here is just an open comment box. If you have any other considerations or thoughts you'd like us to look at while we're carrying out this project. So after clicking submit here, you can't go back in and edit your responses, but you can submit the survey more than once. So if you've included your email and you want to submit the survey twice, that's fine. We can combine your responses and take that into account, or you're always welcome to just send us an email if you have an additional idea after you've submitted the survey. So continuing to scroll down the page here after the survey, you'll see we have two maps. So the first map here is our knowledge sharing map, and this is an interactive map where you can leave comments if there are specific locations that are of interest to you. And we will walk through the process of leaving comments on this map in a moment. But continuing to scroll down the page here under the heading Explore Your Watershed, we've got an informational map. So this contains some of those data layers that Mac Hydro has put together for us throughout their data gap analysis and watershed stratification process. So we can have a look at the information that they used there. There are lots of layers available here at the top left under the layers list. You can toggle these on and off. A lot of them overlap, so we do suggest you just turn on one or two at a time or you will miss some of those data points. And the first layer you'll see here is potential sites. So as Susan said, they have identified some sites that we think might be a good place to put some monitoring stations. So those are indicated here in orange. And if you select one of these, you can get a little bit more detail on the location and some rationale around why they thought this might be a good place to put a site. And yeah, we're certainly interested to hear your feedback on these proposed sites and what you think of them, if you'd be in favor of any of these sites, or if you think we're missing another water body altogether that you'd like to see monitored. And you will see here, if you click on these sites, the type is indicated. So some of these are hydrometric suggestions, some are climate, some are water quality, etc. So you're welcome to explore this map at your leisure. You'll see here we've got things like hydrometric stations, groundwater wells, the community-based water monitoring sites that are available through the Columbia Basin Water Hub here, climate stations, and then if you click on the legend button here at the bottom, you can get the definition of what the different symbols and colors mean here. So someone was asking about the watershed stratification there. So if you turn that layer on and open up your legend here, you'll see the definitions of each of those watersheds that have been classified. So again, you're welcome to explore this as much as you'd like to guide your thinking on the survey and in the comment map, but it's not mandatory. We just wanted to make this information available to you if you'd like to access it, but you don't need to fully understand all of these layers or anything like that. If you don't feel comfortable exploring all of that, we'll certainly take everyone's feedback into account regardless. So going back up to our knowledge sharing map, this is where we'd like to get your feedback and hear your comments. So you can leave as many comments as you want here. And to leave a comment, we're going to click on the blue submit comment button here. A form will appear. You can add your name and add your comment. So we're kind of looking for a few broad categories of comments from you here on this map. Number one here would be, what do you think of the potential sites that Mac Hydro is suggesting? Are there certain sites that you're in favor of? Are others less important to you? Do you have any local knowledge or logistical information about things like site accessibility or recommendations for the placement of the stations within those water bodies? Or are we missing certain sites altogether that you'd like to see monitored? So feel free to leave comments in support of or against the proposed sites, or you can leave pins on any additional sites you'd like to recommend. And then additionally, we'd like to use this map to capture your values. So if there are sites you think are particularly important to understand and protect, if you know about species at risk habitat, places with cultural significance, or important sources of drinking water, or anything like that that you'd like to highlight, please feel free to leave a comment on those locations. And then again, if you prefer to discuss those privately, you're welcome to get in touch with us, because comments left on this map will be visible to the public or anyone viewing this map. And then finally, we'd like to hear about your concerns. So if there are water bodies that you are particularly concerned about, if you have safety concerns or places that are particularly sensitive or at risk, those are very much of interest to us. And your local knowledge around site history, any extreme events or disturbances are very important to this process. And as I said, you can add as many comments to the map as you'd like, so don't be shy. And if you'd like, you can refer to that data map below to inform your comments or get a little bit more information on where monitoring is existing or where there's been monitoring in the past and things like that. So I'll just leave a test comment here. And then you can just click on a point on the map to drop your pin, leave your comment. If you want to attach a photo, if you have a site photo of a concern or anything like that, you're welcome to attach photos here. And if you have an address or something like that, you can just search it up here, or you can just, as I said, just click on a point on the map to add the pin and then hit report it. And these will become visible to everyone here in yellow. So we've got the proposed sites in orange, people's comments in yellow. So while we've got everyone here today, if you'd like to try and leave a comment and let us know if you have any difficulties with that process or anything like that, we've got Maggie here, our GIS tech, and Susan is also available if anyone has any questions about these map layers or how to use the comment tool. So, and we'd love to hear your feedback there. And we do have a little bit of time here today, so I think we can just open up the floor to some open dialogue around these proposed sites or monitoring priorities. And we'll be taking notes here, so anything that you express verbally here today we'll take into consideration as well. But maybe I'll pass it over to Wendy here to guide a bit of group discussion in the next 15 or 20 minutes here.
Okay, thanks, Paige. So yeah, this mapping tool is quite detailed, and there's lots of different layers on it. And I encourage you to take some time and play around with it. And if you're not the technical folks, and if you just want to say this area is important to me, it's just really simple to put that pin and make that comment. Or you can just reach out to me. It's my role as a local reference coordinator is to have these conversations. And if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, you can let me know, and I can speak for you and add it onto the map and make sure that that's included as a point of interest. So it's it's a combination of the technical side, but it's also what's important to you as a community member. From a good fishing hole to where there's a history of erosion, or you've seen the creek flow change significantly over time. Those are the types of information that we want to hear. So I'll just open it up if there's anyone that has any general comments or thoughts about this.
And Wendy, there is a comment by Bill Thompson in the chat box.
Okay. Let's see if I can see that. I see a right on Bill.
Just above that. Okay,
there we go. The focus is on SFC water. A water balance approach requires knowledge of transfer, whatever that, groundwater and consumptive use. So yes, those all things will be taken into consideration. And the information that we get from you folks as the public, knowledgeable in the water area will be combined with the technical folks in order to come up with identifying these sites. And I should note that there's a number of people that aren't here today that I will be reaching out to that said that they couldn't come for various reasons, to make sure that we are including them in the conversation as well. Anyone else that has? Oh, I see Greg put a note in the chat. That is why there are climate stations and other data being collected.
Sorry, I just had a chat come in here, and I thought maybe I should mention this to the entire group while we've got everyone here. You can click on the points in the survey map here to view what other people's comments are. So if someone else leaves a comment, you can have a look at it and respond to it, just to make sure everyone was clear on that.
So I should say that in in a sort of the elevator pitch here is we have funding available for this project. The equipment is on its way, and this is your opportunity to have your say of where you think these water monitoring stations should be. And the intent is to have this platform open for the next couple of weeks, and decisions will be made in the next, mid-June on where they're going to be, and start installation this summer. So it is moving along quickly, and we do strongly encourage you to provide some feedback on your priority areas.
Wendy, can I just jump in? It'd be great if either Martin or Greg or Susan can contextualize the fact that this is like a long-term undertaking. So this is simply a pilot so that we can work out an iterative process of engaging with community priorities as well as meeting scientific needs. But I think just to contextualize it for people to understand that, yes, while we're needing information immediately for this field season, because we're already almost past freshet, but not quite because of the snowpack. But just to say that this is going to be built out over a decade. So I don't know if Greg or Martin or Susan, if you feel comfortable jumping in to provide that context or.
It's Greg here. I'm willing to add, I wanted to add the comment that ideally we wanted to do at least one station in each of the groups of watersheds. I would go a bit further to say ideally we'd be doing 2 or 3 in each group of watersheds, but it really comes down to budget, accessibility, and all kinds of other questions. And I think that over the time, as Kat has indicated, we would like to increase the number of stations that are being monitored so we have some idea of the variability which within each of these groups of watersheds as well. So yes, as a starting point, we would minimally like to have 1 in each group, but ideally we'd like to have a number in each group, and those would probably reflect some of the priorities that are identified out of this survey. But those may not be actually installed until a later date.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, that this is actually quite a novel exercise. I'm sure you all appreciate that. Undertaking monitoring at this scale and attempting to capture and address the variability of the landscape and respect all of the local information and specialized information that you and other people bring. I mean, I think you'd struggle to find a place where this has been done before. So of course it'll be iterative, and of course it'll take some time to implement. And I haven't even mentioned the funding, right? So yeah, this is a long-term venture, as Kat indicates. Yeah.
It's also a great opportunity that, you know, the Kootenay Columbia Headwaters being chosen as a pilot project. So it is a great opportunity for folks to have that level of engagement and input. I did see a comment here from Denise English in the chat. She says, I am someone who doesn't know what a station will look like and what is involved in setting one up. Can please explain? So I'll pass that over to a technical person because I can't answer that question either.
That's a really good question. And, you know, hindsight, we probably should have put in a picture of what each station will look like, rather than just making an assumption that everyone will know. So a simple hydrometric station or a station that will measure stream flow involves a data logger, which is about the size of your coffee cup or potentially smaller. It's kind of a 6-inch long tube, I'll call it. And it's usually fastened below the surface of the water. So it's connected to something that is stationary. So usually a bridge deck or something like that. And we just simply go out and we download the data from it. So it stores information. So it's a really small footprint on the landscape. So basically you take this data logger, you put it in a long metal tube and you attach the tube to something along the bank of the stream or a bridge abutment or something like that. A climate station you may have seen driving along the highway. There'll generally be some sort of a mast and they'll have a wind vane on the top. They'll have a bucket that'll collect rain and they'll be able to identify what the temperature is. So they'll have a temperature sensor and radiation sensor. So they're not massive. A footprint for a climate station might be 10 feet by 10 feet. And the footprint for a hydrometric station is, I would say, potentially smaller than that. So when you're driving along, you may not even know that you're driving by that station. And it's potentially right beside you and you might not see it. Generally, what you will see are solar panels. Generally, solar panels are there to continue to ensure that there is battery power to collect the information. And then every 2 months on average, I think we're still working out the details, there'll be someone from Mac Hydro that will go out and collect that information and download it, and then the information will be uploaded to a website that's available for the public. It's difficult. I apologize. I really should have a picture to show you. So and we could send you some pictures afterwards if you'd like.
And just to add what Susan said, the second part of Denise's excellent question is what's involved in setting them up. And they vary so much. And what's involved implies a cost. And I think that's kind of in the background. That I don't know that you need to sort of burden yourself with the thought of how much things cost. But of course, that's a big part of Living Lakes' consideration is the different parameters require different resources to monitor. Some are relatively cheap, but most require some resources. Like we didn't mention in groundwater, we'd have to use an existing well if we're going to monitor groundwater, and you wouldn't even know it was there pretty well because they're all underground. So yeah, there's quite the variation in cost and effort, and that's why logistics factors in so much. And setting it up is quite a different enterprise than the monitoring. They're very different activities.
I might just add to that. I agree with everything that Martin and Susan said. The only other thing is locating the hydrometric station on the creek is highly critical. You can't just put them anywhere. Obviously, ideally, what you're looking for is someplace there's some kind of a constriction in the creek, that it creates a bit of a pool so that you can measure the elevation as flows increase and decrease. But it has to be something that's stable and it's not going to wash out in a storm. With some of the stations we've located in the north end of Kootenay Lake, a couple of them have been very difficult because of previous landslide activity or extreme climate events where the stations have actually washed out in a storm. So I would say that the major cost in the beginning is just finding a really suitable location on the particular stream. And then the cost of monitoring it becomes of how accessible is that location.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Any other questions? So that was a great question, Denise. I see some. Okay, can you talk about some specific types of decisions, action steps that can relate to having a wait, this is a long one. I have to go back up to the front. Can you talk about
just ask it if that's better?
Sorry, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I think it'd be great to hear a little bit about because this data looks great. It'd be great to get the network sort of more representative and extensive and look at trends, but just like kind of some specific things that might come out of it. So having this better information obviously can make better decisions, but in terms of some specific things maybe that decision makers will be more informed with having this better network, and just maybe some examples of how kind of you're going to be able to interface better with people making decisions about water use with having such a better, more extensive network. Just maybe some examples of that, little actions or choices or something.
I can jump on that briefly if you like. There's different elements of decision making from infrastructure. You know, you can imagine culverts and roads. There's a lot of issues around water quantity, to sort of sustainability issues such as water supply, be it drought is a very typical one. And then there's a host of ecosystem related issues around all the other species other than ourselves that require water. And so each of those has decision-making elements embedded in it. And then inside that are actual regulations that do lean on water quantity and quality. And so professionals typically and community leaders, decision makers, politicians are making decisions about all of these different things, often in an absence of data. Now, this improved network isn't going to be a be all and end all, because it's still only a few points on the landscape. So we have to remember that, but it's enormous to know something, because often we literally know nothing, like literally nothing, especially about high elevation areas and small basins, and sometimes groundwater, quite often groundwater. And there's other areas which can be quite deficient. So if we have any knowledge in those areas, it can help a lot. to improve a decision. Hope that was a good overview.
Just to add some specifics to what Martin had to say. When you talk about infrastructure, it obviously licensing of water for irrigation or domestic use, knowing how low flows are likely to get particularly given climate change, would be a really key decision as to whether you grant a water license or don't grant a water license, or you restrict existing water licenses because you anticipate lower flows. And you may, in addition, have a need to establish environmental flows to protect fish habitat. And knowing what flows you expect to occur is extremely useful. And that's part of the reason we're grouping these watersheds, is if we only measure one, we're assuming the other ones in that group will react in a similar manner, although the actual quantity might be different. The other kinds of things, of course, are around flooding and construction on floodplain. Almost all regional districts have restrictions with regard to construction on floodplains. Having better idea of the size of floods that we might expect in the future with climate change could be very useful to decision makers around floodplain restrictions. Just a couple of practical examples.
Great, thanks, Greg and Martin. And so those are, I mean, really, it's all about being able to identify these sites, get the monitoring in place, and so that that data can be used to help decision makers make good decisions moving forward in the future. So I just wanted to just recap what's going to happen next. So the platform that Paige presented will be open for the next couple of weeks, including the survey. We're going to send out, or Nicole is going to send out a follow-up email to all those participants that are here today, as well as the ones that weren't able to make it, with the links to that. And I encourage you all to take some time with the mapping and put your comments in there, or you can just reach out directly to me as a local reference group coordinator, and we can have those conversations. And I will be reaching out to some folks that weren't here specifically that do have knowledge around the high elevation areas and through the community as well, just to identify the local priorities and areas of interest. The information that's collected, we will have further discussions with the technical team, and from those conversations will come up with the sites within the Kootenay, Columbia, Headwaters regions of where the equipment will be put out later this in the next coming months. Actually, it is coming along quickly. This is a pilot project and it is sort of longer term, but we do appreciate your comments and thoughts on these sites in the next few weeks. Is there anything that anyone else that I've missed, that anyone else from the Living Lakes team wants to add, or any other questions of any of the participants?
I have a quick comment, really quick, and that's that hydrometric measurements are often quite place-based. You really want a specific watershed monitored, you have to monitor that one. Climate can be quite different. You rarely need to monitor in a specific watershed, but you need to monitor in an area that includes that. So groundwater, again, probably where are wells, you know? So they're not all place-based. Just wanted to mention that.
Great, thank you.
I have just coming in from the technical side of things. I mean, we've provided some potential station locations, and it's based on very much a technical analysis. And really, the key piece to ensuring success for this project is community feedback. You know, what do you know about the local area? What is access like? You know, anything that you can fill in will really help ensure that the stations that are chosen are of the best potential location. And I think the other key piece that's really important of this is a long-term project, and that's really key when it comes to decision making as well. So, you know, those are really two key pieces that we're looking for. You know, the feedback from the community is essential, and knowing long-term that this is going to be implemented and can be used. It's great.
So we're asking you, Nick, to do some homework to identify those high priority or low priority areas within the area of the Kootenay Columbia Headwaters, which is essentially the Columbia Valley from Canal Flats, but it doesn't go up as far up as Golden. So Kat, I see you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I just appreciated how Susan had emphasized community, and this is only, again, pilot year, beginning year, so we're trying to catch people who are in the know, but this does need to expand to other water users, so ski hills and golf courses. and communities that are moving from surface water to groundwater, needing to understand recharge rates of aquifers. So that's where this has to expand to. And so your input here is important, but also you reaching out to people that you think we might have missed is relevant. So yeah, and yeah, I think it's been a good session today. So thank you.
Yes, thank you all very much for your time and your listening to us, Nicole.
Oh, I just wanted to speak to what Kat said. We have had interest from Fairmont Hot Springs Resort, Panorama Ski Resort, as well as CMH. So we do have engagement with that sector. But as Kat said, if you know of anyone else who would have that knowledge of the area or interest in water supply and watershed health, please do pass the link on.
Okay, so I think that's all I hear. I see no one else with their hand up. So I think we will we'll sign off for the day, and you'll have an extra 3 minutes of your life that you didn't know you had earlier. So I hope everyone enjoys the balance of the afternoon, and I appreciate you listening to us, and thank you.